Good evening. Thank you for joining us. And I'd ask that everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Gary?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have a high school report from Christian?
Yep. All right. Okay, we ready? Okay, perfect. All right, so good evening. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Christian Lamancia, and I'm POB JFK Student Government Representative to the Board of Education. A mouthful. Students are looking forward to a shortened week and a long break from their screens. And WPOB's POB JFK's radio station is celebrating its 49th anniversary this week. On Friday, February 5th, students celebrated with a night of lip syncing, karaoke, and stand-up comedy in a virtual celebration via Google Meet. To get a first-hand look at what students are up to, tune into WPOB at 88.5 FM between 7 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. on weekdays. The first ever virtual night of acapella went off without a hitch. The community had an opportunity to hear the hard work of our 8 student-run acapella groups in the form of a YouTube playlist. The videos had a combined total of more than 8,000 views. To support the continued success of the acapella program is asking for donations via My School Bucks. The link to donate can be found in the description section of the video presentation on YouTube. The second issue of POB JFK's newspaper, The Hawkeye, was recently released. This exciting issue features an interview with Dr. Sturgiopoulos, POB JFK's newest assistant principal, a recognition of POB JFK's National Merit Scholars, the new CHAPS program, and much more. Students can access the link to the virtual publication from the daily announcements page on the POB JFK website. On February 4th, the freshman class hosted their first ever virtual game night. In a great show of adaptability and resilience, 9th grade student government leaders are still working tirelessly to ensure that their community is building bonds to last for years to come. And looking to the future, the Spanish Honor Society is hosting a fundraiser at Moe's in Plainview on February 11th. The Thespian Honor Society is holding a fundraiser to benefit Broadway Cares at Catch the Wave on February 10th. Afternoon tea with Mr. Sturgiopoulos on February 10th at 2 p.m. and the kickoff of the POB JFK Bridges program. 6 nights of Honor Society run events for our younger POB students to enjoy virtually with our peers from across the district. That's all. Thank you and good night.
Thank you so much and enjoy your vacation. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to go on to board announcements. Susan?
Hello, everybody. I just wanted to call to everyone's attention the Great Bird Count. So if you want to be a citizen science, here's your chance. It's fun, it's easy. All you need to do is watch your backyard birds for about 15 minutes, at least one time over 4 days. And those days would be next week, February 12th through the 15th. You would record this on either the eBird mobile app or Merlin Bird ID app. This is being sponsored by the Cornell Lab and the Audubon Society. There are links to it on my Facebook page, or you can just go on to www.thegreatbirdcount.org. So I know a lot of people have been feeding birds in their downtime, and this is great to be part of a worldwide event. Thank you.
Thank you. Other board announcements? I just have one. I saw in Newsday yesterday that our National Honor Society raised nearly $18,000 last fall that was donated to various charities, including Alzheimer's Association, Doctors Without Borders, and the American Diabetes Association. And to raise these funds, 160 students collected pledges based on their participation in a 10K run in which they were divided into 9 teams. Participants recorded their number of miles and on an app, and they totaled 823 miles. And I wanted to congratulate all of our National Honor Society students and their advisor. And then next we'll go on to superintendent announcements.
Good evening, everybody. We have a lot of good news. Our POB students are really making names for themselves, particularly in the sciences. One of our science teachers, Ms. Wexler, has been accepted as a QuarkNet Fellow, and we're very excited about that because she's part of an international organization of physics that brings particle physics to students and our students, and it's an international organization, so we're very excited about that. One of our seniors, Brian Lee, has been selected as a candidate for the United States Presidential Scholars Program, which is based on his outstanding performance on the ACT and SAT. So very good, Brian. We've had 5 of our research seniors have been chosen to present their work at the semifinalist round of the Junior Science and Humanities Symposium. So congratulations to you 5. And those students would be recognized at our Spring Student Recognition Evening. And POB's first ever National Science Bowl team placed in the top 8 on Long Island. So thank you for your STEM work there, folks. And lastly, this is an exciting new club at the high school, which is the Advocacy Club, and they have been working diligently on a racial awareness presentation that they will be bringing to 5th graders in our middle schools this March. So that is some wonderful work being done across the district. The members of our school community have engaged in POB's first equity committee. This is a very lofty endeavor that includes stakeholders from the community, teachers, administrators, and students. They had an informational night on February 1st where over 72 people attended, and today was their first meeting where they began the deep work of first understanding the framework that New York State uses for this equity work that speaks of inclusive environments, doing audits of culturally responsive curriculum, and et cetera. So this is some really big work that we're trying to lift in a pandemic, but there are some dedicated folks at the helm of this, including Ms. Dorothy Drexel, the assistant principal at POB Middle School, and we're pretty excited what we will get from this work. Also, during the pandemic, we began a new remote parent family district-wide committee where these parents were able to work with PTA members in our curriculum and instruction office at Central. And they brought several things to the forefront. One, a big concern is keeping their children connected to their in-school peers. And how do we provide social opportunities that are safe while these students learn from home? And whenever you want something big like this done that involves children, you get the children involved. So we took this challenge, this problem, to our high school honor societies, and each of them met with us, and they came up with this great idea of creating a new program called the POB Bridges Program. And these students are going to be volunteering their time starting this Thursday night, and for the next 5 Thursdays, they will host numerous workshops, learning sign language, inspired arts and shapes and faces, theater games, musical theater karaoke, and NYSMA prep, sight reading basics. And these students will lead Google Meets at 7 o'clock at night, and the parents have begun to sign up. It was almost like waiting online for a rock concert. The minute we put the link out, all of these workshops filled up quickly, but again, there'll be one each week. And I want to thank the high school for really setting a culture where our students know that giving back to the community first starts with the students in our community. So thank you for that. And we did receive a lot of feedback from various groups in the district about the 21-22 calendar that was adopted at the last board meeting. We did mention how challenging that calendar was with the late Labor Day weekend and the addition of Juneteenth. So I would recommend we go back to that calendar and take a look and maybe agenda it for a future meeting to see if somehow we can. Okay, thank you. And lastly, I just want to speak a little bit about the class outbreak of COVID over at Old Bethpage Elementary School. Those students are now off quarantine. We haven't seen any subsequent cases from that. And although there's a lot of research and a lot of investigation going into this particular case, we just want to emphasize to families that Since September, we have never seen anything like this. This was a truly isolated incident. When we did our mass testing of the staff and the families over at Old Bethpage on February 3rd, there were 0 cases identified, which lets us know it wasn't a super spreader event. It was an isolated case in this classroom. And I don't say that to minimize the impact of 11 sick children. They are healing, we're in contact with those families, but still we're looking at what protocols or what else we could do to make sure something like this does not happen again. We've offered those families who are uncomfortable on that quarantine to remain remote for the rest of the week. But I also want to thank our PPS staff and our counselors, because some parents wrote to me saying, you know, my child wasn't part of that, but is a little nervous coming back to school. What do you have in place for the children? And over this weekend, Lori Lynn, Dolores Espinosa, and Jennifer Lott, along with their counseling team and their social workers, worked to come up with a plan for these families. They'll be hosting you know, an information resource page or event for parents, but also they were there in force today to make sure when the children returned to Old Bethpage that they were in a good spot and they were watching out for our little youngest learners. So thank you very much for that. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go on to reports and discussions. Our first report will be the revised district-wide school safety plan. Mr. Donnarumma.
Thank you very much. All right, so tonight I'm going to present something that you have seen before, which is our safety plan. And if you're thinking about it, I've seen this school year already, you're absolutely correct. So there's not too often that you get the opportunity to present the revised plan during the course of the school year, and that's what we're doing tonight. So the background to this is not isolated to our school here or our district. It's something the state has come out with through the course of the school year in the planning of a future pandemic. So if there's a closure, what would school districts do? And to really write those plans in great detail. So that's what we're talking about tonight. That's why we're back at the table to take a look at our safety plan. So I will go through some of the components that you have to have in the plan. In the past, over the past so many years, really our efforts took a look at really risk reduction, prevention, response, and recovery. We talked all about lockdown, lockout, procedures, what we would do in the what if situations involved. Nassau County Police Department, Homeland Security, we've done all those partnerships. But really the focus of this plan is to take and embed everything we've done up to this point and to really implement the continuity of operations in the event the governor declares a public health emergency and shuts us down. So think of the framework in the spring. What we had in the spring, how would a district operate without a shutdown? Because the direction is we would still need to go about our course of our business, and we would still need to do the things to educate students that we do on a given day. So that's what this is about. Just as a reminder, as we talk about the plan, which we're not going to approve tonight, that's going to be approved, basically at a future board meeting, and I'll explain the reasons why. When you're approving a plan and you're looking at a plan, you're taking a look at designating a chief emergency officer, that's myself. You're also approving a district school safety plan. And I want to stop and just talk about that for a second, because anyone that really gives a reflection on a district-wide safety team always starts with to look at the involvement of our board members. And they use that as a gauge to see if the school district takes it seriously. And I want to commend our board members. Not only do we have one board member that sits on our team, we have 2 board members that actively participate in our school safety team. So that's something that's really good for our school district to talk about. You're also in this plan talking about general emergency plans, general protocol, and general information that a school district would use to really respond to emergencies. But in essence, you talk about things that are in general, they're not in detail. All the details of our response are embedded in confidential school safety plans. When we talk about building this plan, which we've done and we've approved at our last district committee meeting, we have involvement throughout the district in different positions. Anyone that you see on the screen, they're active participants in our committee meetings to get us to the point of what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. And they've all approved of what we're going to speak about. But just with the state timeline, there are components of a district safety plan that have to be met. The first component we've taken care of is presentation to our committee for approval. We took care of that on January 21st. And there's a typo there. It's actually 2021, so I apologize for that. The next component is presentation to the board. That's a component we're taking care of tonight. And then there's a requirement of a 30-day comment period for the community to be noticed as to our plan and to give feedback on the plan. So that's going to happen tomorrow, where I send out a notice to the community, post this plan, which I'm going to speak about in a second, on the website, and then look for feedback from our community members to then come back with a potential revised plan to the board for potential approval on March 15th, 2021. When we take a look at really what the district safety team has focused on in the past, the representations of the graphics on the bottom really say what we've done in the past. But to be quite honest with you, this year we have focused tremendous efforts on modifying our procedures to fit into the COVID model. So we've spoken a lot about COVID and how we can react as a school district to get all those things done. But what's new about this year? So in our plan, what we're talking about doing here is we are talking about, as a school district, if we were to go into a potential shutdown, who would be essential positions and who would be non-essential positions within our district. And I don't want anyone to mistake essential as people that have, positions that are important versus not important. It's not that way. Essential would simply mean in our plan who physically has to report to in-person work for a portion of their work assignment. It also forces us to define specific protocols for non-essential employees to telecommute. So meaning, if I'm working from my home, a portion of my work schedule, what are the procedures I would use to be a vital a vital component to the organization? We have to, in our plan, develop staggered work shifts for all of our essential employees with the focus of making sure we're reducing overcrowding. It's really a focus to make sure that there aren't great numbers of people in one place in a given time. One of the components that's different that you may have heard us talk about in the past is a PPE supply. It goes from 3 months to a 6-month supply, and we are designated to have to illustrate those components in this plan. All of the things you would come to expect regarding contact tracing, cleaning, disinfection are in this plan, as well as supports for contact tracing efforts. And believe it or not, at the end of the plan, it actually forces each school district throughout New York State to identify emergency housing options in the event that you have a closure where people cannot travel to their homes for external, exposure, which is really hard to believe. But if we were talking about all this stuff last year, we would say this stuff is all hard to believe. One of the biggest difference I want to point out regarding the district safety plan, besides when compared to the building level safety plans, is that the building level emergency response teams, they're appointed by the school building principal. They focus on really the confidential response actions that schools would take in the event of a lockdown, lockout, shelter in place. And they're supported by 2 core groups within their plan, which is an emergency response team, which is going to help and assist during an emergency, and also a post-incident response team, which would basically assist in getting the school back into normal operations. In comparison, when you take a look at the differences again, district-wide safety plans have requirements. The major difference between the building and the district, everything we talk about on a district level in the plan is all available to the public, and it's on purpose to be that way. It requires a comment period, it requires board approval, and it requires, we submitted all this back in October, but we're going to have this all submitted to the state by April 1st. And then it's also a requirement we send to our state and local law enforcement as well. The biggest component between the 2 plans is the confidentiality, which are those building level plans, the detailed plans, which we do not broadcast to the public. Once again, when we talk about moving forward, there is going to be a 30-day comment period. The community can look for an email that'll be sent out from myself. If there are any questions, concerns, details of the plan they want to speak about, you can either call me in the office or reach out to me in an email, and we'd be glad to assist. We look forward to bringing this back to the board in about a month from now. So I appreciate the time to present this information.
Thank you, Mr. Donnarumma. I think that this will be really a great thing to have, such as this plan, should we ever need it again going forward. So thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing comments from the community on the plan.
Thank you.
And now we're going to go on to feedback on new high school program, freshman seminar.
Thank you. This is such a thrill to be presenting this to you this evening. This idea of providing our freshmen with a transition program that had them in small groups with a responsible adult in the building was mirrored after the MAP program at the middle school. This was a request for quite some time of our PTA curriculum committee to provide more transitional support to students. You will see it in your board goals for the past 2 years: executive functioning, organizational skills, being responsible socially, and how do you adjust in a new building. It was the most perfect time to do this, knowing that our 8th graders who were moving into high school stopped going to school in March of last year, and they didn't get to enjoy what typical freshmen get to enjoy, and that is the multiple visits to the high school, going to the nights about making their schedules, and becoming more comfortable with what would be their new environment in September. We were very realistic, knowing how stressed our entire staff was at the end of the year. But I do have to tell you, giving them the charge to create a program for our students, particularly our freshmen, was met. And, you know, it's one of those things where you ask for something and it's an under promise, like we will try to get this done to the best of our ability while being in a massive shutdown. And they completely over delivered. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to the people who took a germ idea and really turned it into something pretty special for our students. You can take it away, high school.
Thank you. I'm going to start it off. Good evening, Board of Education, Central Administration. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you for that introduction, Dr. O'Mara. Really, this has been such a highlight for me, and I know for my colleagues as well. As you know, we've talked about this in the past. Our freshman seminar program was developed to help prepare our students to be successful high school students and to develop healthy strategies. So we had in last spring sent out a survey to our high school teachers, asking them for feedback, those skills and attributes they thought were really critical for success for students. And based on that feedback, we invited various staff members to participate in curriculum writing this past summer. So a group of teachers, social workers, psychologists, and guidance counselors worked on developing a really rich and fantastic curriculum. And we delivered 7 lessons, as you can see, on these topics. And again, these topics gotten from the survey from the teachers. And now we will talk about how it all went. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. Good evening, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be able to present to you all this evening our discussion about freshman seminar. It was just such an exciting opportunity for so many of us to be able to partake in this new initiative. We had 27 members of our faculty, guidance counselors, social workers, school psychologists, almost all of the department supervisors, as well as all of the assistant principals and myself, all took part in this. We had up to 15 students in our groups. I think 1 or 2 of them may have had 16 students that we met with periodically throughout the first semester of the school year. And as you saw the topics that Ms. Lynn had just presented a few moments ago, it was a great opportunity for us to be able to speak to students, to get to know them a little bit better, to collaborate with our colleagues on these important topics, and to plan ahead on how we were going to make these topics exciting and interesting for them, so the students would want to come back to the next session, because it wasn't required. It wasn't mandatory that the students got involved in this and took it on, but they did. They kept on coming back, and we really built some really good relationships with the students that were involved in this. So I have to say I'm most excited about it, because a lot of the presenters that were presenting, we've kind of been out of the classroom in the sense of being in front of a class and teaching. So here we are working with these students behind our screen, like everybody else is doing lately, but being able to present and to talk and to get to know them. And it was a really exciting opportunity, and I'm so glad we were able to do it. And as you can see, all of those that we surveyed from the presenters, every single one of them wants to come back and do it again next year. So I'm sure we're going to be doing a little bit of modifications to it, a little tweaking here and there to make the program better, because that's what it's all about. But we look forward to doing that in the days to come. So again, thank you very much for this opportunity. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Phil Farrelly.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. First, I'd like to, reiterate what Dr. O'Mara said and really also commend Dr. O'Mara for giving us that charge, but really entrusting us, knowing that we could handle this in a really difficult time. When we talked about it in the spring, it was so far away, but then when we got here to the fall, it was just, we were rolling with everything. And to me, one of the biggest things this opportunity provided for myself and my colleagues was, a little bit of a taste of good medicine. We really needed something to distract us from what we were going through on a daily basis. And this was a great opportunity for us to collaborate. And this is one of the survey questions that was given to the facilitators that I think really highlights what we got out of this the most, besides obviously working with students and being with students and presenting to students, was collaborating with each other. And that is as an educator, it's the ultimate desire, I think, and need that we always have. And when we've lost that contact of being around each other so much, having these facilitator meetings on a weekly basis, being able to talk and brainstorm about what we were going to do for the following week was not just tremendously helpful, but it also brought us back together around a common goal. I would say every time that we were about to present on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, we really there was a buzz that was going around in the main office area or throughout the building, where there was this big hype of, we knew we were going to be presenting that day. We were kind of cheering each other on, patting each other on the back, and maybe sharing good ideas of what to do. Or if you were presenting the next day, you're also touching base with your colleagues about what worked and what didn't work. So I found myself, and I know my colleagues did too, of falling back to those old habits, which are really good habits of lesson planning, thinking about your timing during a lesson, assessment. And then this really led to us opening up to different strategies that we were seeing in classrooms and teachers doing this. And we were watching that happen. And then we actually started to take on those same habits as well, where we were now worrying about student engagement, whether the cameras were on, whether a student was maybe in their bed when they should have been maybe at a desk. These moments that we were hearing about from teachers, we started to experience ourselves. So it really gave us a good perspective, especially when we're going into classrooms and evaluating teachers about engagement and what things we're looking for. We were experiencing those things ourselves. So I'm going to turn this over to my colleague Diana, and she's going to take it on to bring you some highlights to other experiences we saw.
Thank you, Mr. Farrelly. And I want to say good evening to everyone, and thank you for this experience. It was really enlightening to be able to be part of it. It was certainly something that I looked forward to, as Mr. Farrelly had mentioned, and the colleagues before him. There was this feeling during that very last meeting when you clicked out and the screen kind of went black, and you realized it was over for a while. So I can't wait to get back in there and to keep going with it. So some of the things I just wanted to point out that we really benefited from was this personal connection with students in a socially distanced world. It was certainly an interesting year to pilot this program, but I think it was certainly necessary and the right time. Not only did it give us as facilitators an opportunity to connect with students we normally wouldn't be able to do so, it gave the students an opportunity to connect with an adult in the building they may not normally see as a social emotional support. For example, maybe a guidance counselor that isn't theirs, or the principal, or an AP, or a department chair. So it gave them that chance to connect, not only during these sessions, but also, they've emailed us, they've come and visited us in person when they can. So really it let us build relationships with the students with each other, us with the other facilitators. And overall, I think it was really a great start for our freshmen to feel that connection to the school. And then also, as Mr. Farrelly mentioned, it was a sort of learning lab for us. It was great to be back in the classroom, even if it was virtual. It gave us a chance to really identify with the teachers who were experiencing this every day, whether they'd be laying in the bed, the student, asking them to sit up, turn on the camera. We not only could sympathize, now we could empathize. And we were able to try out different things, strategies, tools, tech, talk about them with the other facilitators, talk about them with the students, what worked for them, what didn't. They told me sometimes I tried too many tech, so we decided to just use Padlet for a little bit. And I shared that with faculty and staff during, our faculty meetings, but also during debriefs, and really letting ourselves be vulnerable and share those true experiences. So overall, I think it helped us become stronger advisors or facilitators, but also just lead educators. And I really appreciated that opportunity. So I'm going to just transition now to Mr. Sestero.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Mrs. Beltrani. I'm going to reiterate some of what my colleagues had mentioned. Freshman seminar at first seemed quite daunting when we came back here, and as the COVID coordinator, all of the moving parts back in September, and really just trying to get underway and get our year started. And so at first it seemed as if, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this and do it well? And those facilitated meetings, the collaboration with our colleagues was vital. We did certainly have a buzz, and as Ms. Beltrani said a little earlier, there was that feeling of emptiness in a sense when, God bless you.
Oh, thank you.
There was a feeling of maybe disappointment or emptiness when we knew that it was over. I remember we all kind of walked out of our offices and looked down the hallway towards one another and talked about how we're going to really miss our students, and having that connection. And speaking of vulnerability, it was really a good way, if you want to quote Brene Brown, it showed that we were vulnerable as well as adults or administrators. And it showed to the students that, you know what, we don't have all the answers at this time, and we're in this together, and we're going to discuss it. We're going to have a routine, and we're going to be able to speak to our peers, which is what some of the, I guess you could say, research out there is telling us, that, peer support is vital to the students. And for me, in often finding myself investigating COVID situations, it was just a reminder of the students, and just a bright spot, if you will, and a reminder of what we're working for and who we're working for. And to be able to speak to those kids on a weekly basis, or excuse me, a bi-weekly basis, it typically was refreshing. And it was really nice to hear the students contribute and the students reflect upon their experiences, because it just made us better. And like my colleague said, it really put us on the spot to learn some new tech tools quickly and be able to turnkey some of those with our respective departments and teachers, and learn on the spot and have a reminder of it is uncomfortable being in front of that camera, whether you are a student or a facilitator. But it was just overall a lot of fun, and I'm honored to be a part of it. So thank you. And I was supposed to say I'd like to now turn it over to Dr. Sturgiopoulos. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sestero. So as my colleagues have already shared, we definitely knew that there was some magic happening in reference to this freshman seminar. Between the collegial collaborations and our meetings with the students, we knew something special was happening, but we really wanted to measure what that special was. So we decided to give our students a survey to explore their impressions of the program. So our freshman survey consisted of the following questions, both quantitative and qualitative. We had 128 students respond to the survey, and as we could see, the overwhelming majority would recommend freshman seminar to an incoming freshman. Of those 7 that said that they would not, upon closer examination of the data, most of them did not attend all the sessions, so there may be a correlation between attendance and their impression. In the next 2 slides that I'm going to share with you, we can see some of our students' qualitative responses to the questions, and I've made a point to highlight some of these points. So the students mentioned that they felt like they could voice their opinions, and that freshman seminar became a place where they can listen to their classmates and see that they're not the only ones experiencing what they're feeling right now. And it just became a safe space where they could get great advice and learn how to cope with their stress, and just to feel more personal during this time. On this slide, we polled our students and asked them what would they change about freshman seminar and why. And what's exciting to see is that most of them said that they would like it to be more frequent. They would like it to be every 2 weeks, and they would like it to be held in person, which of course was what we had originally intended when all of this was planned. And in considering our survey and the findings from our survey, we evaluated and came up with some of these next steps. So some considerations that we have for the future of this program is that Obviously, our intention is to bring this program in person. We think that using circles and a meeting with the students will have a different value. We're still working on finding the ideal time to conduct freshman seminar. Will it be 10th period, 11th period? Will it be embedded within the school day? These are some considerations that we have right now, including perhaps increasing the frequency of the sessions and including more of them in total. We hope to have additional curriculum writing hours to refine and expand on topics. And one of the suggestions that our students made actually was to have a culminating group service project. So developing a curriculum around that would be really exciting as well. Another suggestion that a student had is that perhaps those that graduate the program, so our current freshmen, our next year sophomores, might serve as co-facilitators, thereby earning some kind of community service hours in being co-facilitators with one of the adult facilitators. Perhaps integrating more parent participation, such as having additional sessions where we transition to high school, informational sessions and so forth. And our goal ultimately is to increase participation. So should we mandate the program? What other incentives can we provide? We've already provided a quarter credit, but what else can we provide to incentivize students? But with all of this feedback, we thought that it would be best to share with you the feedback from the voice of our students. So here we go.
Hello, my name is Adine Amon, and I would just like to say that I found freshman seminar to be very beneficial and worthwhile. It provided me with many valuable tips and skills that helped me adjust and transition into high school life. My favorite session was the one on empathy because I finally understood the difference between empathy and sympathy, and I've been trying to apply that concept to my everyday life. In addition to that, I've been working on establishing a growth mindset after participating in the growth versus fixed mindset session. Overall, each and every concept covered during freshman seminar was relevant and useful, and I would highly recommend it to every incoming freshman. Thank you, and have a nice day.
I think freshman seminar was a great course to take starting off as a freshman in high school. I think that it really helped set your goals right, and it really helped you kind of plan out everything that you want to achieve, and it gave so much advice and so much life lessons that will help me continue to grow as a stronger student and a stronger person. And I highly recommend taking this when you're a freshman because it will really help you guide your way through your high school journey and really help you find your path towards what you want to achieve in your 4 years of high school and further on in your life. So I highly recommend this course.
Hi, I'm Zach Newmark, and I thought that the freshman seminar was a really good way of learning about high school, considering this is a new school and the work is much more difficult and it's a harder workload. And it really helped me. The main aspect I think it helped me with was time management and helped me know when I should get things done. And it also helped me interact with my peers more. And it really is a good guideline on how to take on high school.
Hello, my name is...
So thank you so much to our Board of Education and our central administration for offering us this opportunity to share our excitement and our passion behind this program. And we look forward to hearing your feedback and any questions or comments you may have. Thank you.
I think we thank all of you for participating, and really, I think you have your student ambassadors right there to speak with current 8th graders and their parents. So great job. Questions, comments, Tara?
Hi, guys. Thank you. This is, amazing. I am so happy it was so successful. I am sure it was an enormous task for everybody involved. And obviously it is extremely appreciated, not only by the board, but by the kids. And I'm really excited to see how this is going to grow and where else we can take it. and as we kind of expand it downwards and upwards and what else we can do, these are such important skills. I think they're vital for success in life. And to help instill them in these kids at an early point in their high school career is so wonderful. They're going to have this fundamental block to build on as they continue through their educational career through high school and beyond. So I'm super excited to see where it's going to go. And I can't thank you enough. Dr. O'Mara, thank you for making this happen. And I hope that the students see the value in it as time goes on, and you have a tremendous amount of interest as it continues to grow. These students, empathy, sympathy, growth mindset, goals, life lessons, what you can achieve, time management, peer interaction. These are huge. I couldn't be happier. So thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Gary? I just want to thank everyone for the report. One of the things I found very interesting is when the question was asked about how often, the amount of time, and some said every 2 weeks to refresh. Maybe there are parts of time during the year that it would behoove them before maybe midterms, different exams coming up, different stress points in the kids' lives that they should know about, even doing the schedule for the following year. For some kids, it's a very stressful time. But I think, you got the emotional and social part of it in it. And I think that this is healthy. This is really, really good for kids. And it also invests in our kids. It shows them that we are worried and concerned. And under COVID, everything is very, very different. But this is something that should be ongoing and built upon. I think, Tara, you have your ambassadors already. But thank you for all the hard work that went into. And this is something I think is very unique to our district. And thank you for taking such consideration for our kids.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, thank you very much. Having had 3 kids come through this district on to college and stuff like that, I can tell you they would have benefited tremendously from this program. So great job, great work. I also think it's interesting that you came up with the whole format for what you did with this, that map kind of concept and the way you're meeting. So I always like to say, if you got a great thing, can you duplicate it in other areas? And I know one of the things we talk about on the board a lot is, how do we prepare our seniors, to become adults, those adult things like personal finance, making good choices, eating correct, the things that happens when you're not under mom and dad's supervision necessarily anymore. So I'm just going to throw out there that I love the format, and I have a feeling it could be really cool as a senior, seminar to kind of get those kind of things we talk about. Wow, I wish my kids knew this before they left the nest. So great job. And I'm sorry for giving you more work, but I think you could pull off something just as great.
Well, I'll just jump in really quick if it's okay. We have for several years run a program called College 101, based after the High School 101 transition program that we have with our 8th graders. And the difficulty that we've had is that it's really tough to get seniors to come during remedial for a workshop. Sometimes we'll get 5 students, 6 students, but it's that same kind of challenge where, where do we grab them? When is it a good time during the day to grab them? But we have, I'm accepted, now what, a kind of a basics of financial aid and navigating college campuses and things like that. But I'm very much with you, Mr. Batan. It's absolutely, the more of this kind of thing we can do, the better.
Thank you. Lauren?
I want to echo everything, but I'll keep it short. I just want to thank you all for being so vulnerable. And I know our kids are vulnerable, but I'm sure it meant so much for them to see that we are all in this together. So thanks for lighting their way forward freshman year. I'm sure it meant so much to them. And just continue doing amazing work. My heart was racing during this. I think this is so awesome. And I remember being a freshman because it was only like a couple of years ago. And it's such a scary time, and this had to put them at such ease, and they had to feel that you weren't only their mentors, but their friends. And that had to be an amazing feeling. So thanks for doing such a great job.
Thank you. I, again, wanted to echo everything that everybody said. And I want to, I'm sure Ginger will remember this. Many years ago, I think we traveled to a district in Pennsylvania to see what their MAP program was. And, you know, out of our visit and lots of discussion came our MAP program. But this was also the kind of thing that we really envisioned, was to have an adult connecting individually with kids in a more social setting, a little less like a classroom. And it certainly sounds like you've made incredible connections, and they have with you. And it's an example of something coming out of this crazy year that hopefully we will continue for a long time. And I personally would love to see this as a requirement for every ninth grader. Because I think it's invaluable in so many ways. So maybe that's something you can toss around and think about how you may implement that. So thank you all so very much. We were very excited this evening. Thank you. Okay. Now we're going to go on to public participation. District policy number 1510.1 provides that persons wishing to make comments or raise questions shall, one, state their name and address, and two, indicate on whose behalf they are speaking if a non-resident. The policy prohibits public discussion on matters relating to staff and students at which their reputation, privacy, or rights to due process, or those of others, could in some way be violated. As a reminder, a video recording of this meeting, including public participation, is being made and will be posted on the district's website. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes. We thank you in advance for being respectful to other speakers, the Board of Education, and all staff members. The floor is now open.
I would just ask my assistant superintendents if you see an Ask the Soup that I miss. One of the comments we've gotten is it takes them a little time to type in their emails. So if we could give them a little more time to get that in. Good evening. This is late to add as a talking point for the meeting happening now, but would like some feedback. Will we be hearing about creative and fun ways to start bringing our high schools together, particularly seniors? There has been very little information on this topic. You mentioned keeping students connected to school at the beginning of the meeting and workshops being held virtually. Our high school students are working hard to volunteer their time to keep the momentum going for younger students, but what about our high school students? There have been districts that are putting together event calendars, and most recently, I was very impressed to hear Plain Edge has given a faculty member a stipend to be in charge of these senior events. There is a large social emotional concern here as these students are still remote for a good chunk of the week. Zoom is very isolating. I'm constantly impressed regarding the creativity I'm hearing happening for our younger students, which is wonderful, but it's time to start hearing about our high school students as well. Another one. My two daughters are ninth graders at POB JFK. I appreciate Dr. Amara's suggestion to reconsider the 21-22 calendar. I wanted you to know that my children who felt included and acknowledged by the board 3 years ago now feel excluded and left out. They have begun an online petition which has 535 POB student signatures asking Dwali to be included in the 21-22 calendar. Hello, I was wondering if we can open up the calendar for a discussion for Dwali. And I don't think we have any more. Do we have any more, Chris, Joanne, or Rich? Do you see any others?
Yes, we have one. I'm sorry, my email just of course closed. Hold on a second, and I will get back to it. That was asking about the possibility of, I'm trying to get the actual email. Okay, here we go. Good afternoon, hope all is well. Just wanted to follow up regarding our recent exchange. Will any information be shared related to this? My son is afraid to go back to school after his class was quarantined. Can students learn remotely this week to guarantee some much needed vacation time? I think this was in reference to February break.
So right now for this week, if parents wanted to opt their children into remote, we've always had that opportunity. There is a form on the website under the COVID parent resource page. If you want to opt your child into full remote, you can do that. We have one more. Dr. O'Mara, thank you for the information. I appreciate your response to time. Oh, this came in as Ask the Wolves, Ask the Superintendent. So that was a private email. Sorry, you sent it to the wrong email. But it was a compliment, so I should read it out loud.
You should.
Thank you, Dr. O'Mara. Hold on, let's see if there's one more.
There was one about Eid.
Yep, thank you. I just got that. You can read that,
Okay.
Mr. Cunningham.
Dear Board of Education and Dr. O'Mara, can you please provide information on when the Eid holiday will be added back to the 21-22 calendar? This was approved last year and omitted in this year's calendar as a school holiday for Muslim families. Thank you. Alka.
The one thing with the Eid, when that was approved, this is really important to understand that sometimes it will fall during the AP week as it is in 21-22. So we cannot close schools when there is that type of testing going on, and that we would have to bring students in for their AP exams and have staff also in to proctor those exams. So that was made very clear that there are certain times during the year where Eid falls during that testing week. So that would make it impossible as it is in 21-22.
Okay, that was the last question I saw.
Thank you very much. That's all we have.
Great. Okay, thank you. Seeing no other speakers and receiving no other questions, public participation is closed. We appreciate your questions and comments, and we'll consider your input. Thanks so much. We're going to go on to routine business. Can I have a motion for routine business? Ginger, second. Lauren, any holds or separations? All those in favor? Thank you. I just wanted to mention that this evening we have accepted a number of retirements from staff members, many of whom I have a personal experience with because they taught my own children. So, you know, it's a very sad time for us, but we will recognize all of these staff members individually later in the year on their retirement. But we right now congratulate you for making that decision. And now we're going to go on to new business, the athletic safety plan. Yes, Gary. Yes, I'm sorry. As amended?
Yeah, amended.
Okay. Oh, I thought we did it in, okay. Right. So you want to make the motion and Gary could make the second, unless you know.
Well, I thought we would discuss and then come back. We could. Someone's got to start it.
Okay, so you're just making a motion on the plan. And a second? Okay. A second, Susan. Okay, discussion. Seth.
So, you know, one of the things that the athletic safety plan addresses is high-risk sports. Not just wrestling and basketball, there are others as well, indoor, close contact. One of the things that we're requiring is testing, you know, weekly testing of our students. I'm sorry? Yes, COVID testing. COVID testing. And so one of the things, you know, that we've discussed, or at least has been included, and one of the things that I'd like to put out there is that if we're going to be playing or competing against another team at another district in one of these high-risk, close-contact sports, that we only play those teams and those schools that have a similar testing policy as ours, so that we do the best we can under the circumstances to provide as much protection, notice as possible. Try to catch things ahead of time, limit exposure as much as we can. Obviously, it's voluntarily, you're volunteering to participate in this sport, so being subject to the testing should be a requirement. And for those schools that don't follow protocols, I would not feel comfortable having our students compete against them.
Okay, how does everybody else feel? Tara?
I agree with Mr. Greenberg.
I agree.
Okay, so we all agree with that. So do you want to amend your motion, Gary?
Yes. I would like to amend my motion to include Seth Clumian.
I would say we'll adopt the athletic safety plan as amended by, assuming the majority of the board is okay.
I think it was
That we want dual reciprocal testing from the teams we play.
There you go.
Okay, Tara, second. Any further discussion? Gary?
And I know this is just about athletics, but I would hope that if we can do these contact sports, Susan, you want to take it away? that we can start doing other things that are like the arts and music and plays and stuff like that. If these kids could be on top of each other wrestling or playing contact sports, I would hope that we can look at opening up some of these other activities that are, to me, just as important as sports.
Just for a point of clarification, we're asking for reciprocal testing on higher risk sports only, correct? Great. Fortunately, a lot of the districts have required their athletes to test for higher risk sports, so we only have a few that we have to contact in order to be clear on that. And then I'll take it away.
Right, okay, so all those in favor of the motion? Thank you. Susan, do you want to?
Gary has started the conversation that I would like to also include, because we all know that one of the reasons that this is being allowed is for social, emotional, and for students to be part of a group and feel some sort of normalcy. Also that, bring some sort of normalcy to the students, but not all students are sports students. And I don't think we've ever really touched about, and maybe if Mary could please think about, or how our district could possibly look now at arts and music, drama clubs that have been either suspended or put onto a totally virtual platform, that they can come back in some safety. I know that there are requirements by the state, but if there's things, because it is cold in the Northeast, and it would be nice for students to be able to come together under a roof. So.
Thank you for that, Ms. Stewart, because I'm sure it's music to some people's ears. No, but seriously, there are different requirements depending on the activity. The music still has the 12-foot, which makes no sense, because that's just one of the confusions of COVID. We can wrestle on a mat, but we can't be within 12 feet of someone playing a clarinet. However, I'm sure the drama and all our thespians would be very happy to hear that there's some advocacy for returning them safely. If you recall, we had given the board a list of all the activities and organizations that use our facilities outdoor and indoors. We had restricted the indoors. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you would like us to go back to that list and make a recommendation of which ones we think we could return safely after the break? Great, that would be great.
Tara?
And just to kind of follow up on that, I don't know if it's something we can look into, but to the extent we can provide access to internally even to people who might want to see these sports, because there's no spectators, as I understand it. Perhaps we can look into the opportunities to do that. And if we were to do drama or something, a similar opportunity there, so that even though people aren't physically in the room, they're still able to have their school pride and watch their children and so on and so forth.
The athletic department is planning to live stream many of the competitions and then record the ones they cannot and post them on the website. I know as a mother of a swimmer right now in his senior year, it's killing me. I can't watch any of his matches, his swim meets, but I know the athletic department's up on doing that and providing parents that access and spectators.
Thank you. Susan?
So we had one ask the soup question a little earlier about seniors. Would this be able to fall under that? This is a kind of a little
Senior
bit.
events?
Yeah, we had a.
Yeah, they're working, I know the high school's working with the student council and representatives of student government to decide which activities can be retrofitted to be COVID compliant. And that should be coming out shortly, but I know they're doing extensive work on that. People just have to keep one thing in mind: to bring the entire student, the senior class into the building, we would have to then have no one else in the building, because we would need to keep them, a ratio of 15-1 in a classroom. So that means all teachers would have to be available to supervise that. Just so people are aware, there's a cost of bringing all the seniors back. It might be at the expense of another group not being in school that day. That's the only caveat to that.
I understand that. It kind of all falls under that same umbrella a little bit.
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Okay. The next piece of new business is the recommendation to approve the resolution and attached documents authorizing the district's legal representation regarding the sale of Fern Place subdivision of property and disclosure of interest, and authorize the superintendent of schools to sign the same. Motion Ginger, second Tara. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. May I have a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of obtaining legal advice from district counsel? Tara, second Seth. All those in favor? Thank you. And thank you for attending our meeting tonight. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a safe vacation for those who will not be in school next week.